Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, Steph Curry. He's ridiculous. He's the GOAT. We're going to talk about him a little bit. The Lakers got another win, but Anthony Edwards, oddly, got ejected and may miss a few games. And Law Murray stops by for a wide-ranging conversation about why every team doesn't actually play the same. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, S.
Good morning, Dave.
Great night of hoops.
What a
Steph Curry, man. Yeah. Look, the Warriors went to Orlando, and look, with the way Orlando's been playing, they got crushed by 40 the other night. I was thinking, all right, we're probably not going to hit this game. The Warriors would just wipe them out. Didn't work out that way. The Warriors did win the game, and we're going to get to that. But the way this game started out, the Magic actually had a really nice run to start the game, got themselves a big lead. But Steph Curry just did the thing that he does, and had a 22-point third quarter. He had 12 threes in the game, had 56 points. And the Warriors needed all of those to win the game, and including all the points they got from Quintin Post, who we'll talk about. But this game was, number one, a game that I did not expect us to be talking about. So it was a nice surprise. But number two, Steph Curry, 56 freaking points. He is, what is it? He's got the most 50-point games after turning 30 with 9 now. Yeah. Do you want to pontificate a little bit about Steph?
Yeah, of course. Steph is incredible. The one thing I saw was that he has the most 20-plus point quarters ever, which is just ridiculous to think about. Man. The Curry flurry, man. It's incredible to watch. I think he's still the number one guy to watch in the NBA. And I don't think that's a hyperbole. I think he gets on those moments.
To the ratings.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's true. To the ratings as well. Like, it's must-watch TV when that guy is just going like that. And it's funny because there was this clip circulating today of him against the Warriors in 2016 and just the flurry that he went on against that. Against the Thunder in 2016.
Yeah.
But it just kind of reminds you of how great he was in his prime and how kick-ass he still is when he gets on that level. The other thing I wanted to mention about Steph, which is crazy because like Jimmy didn't have the greatest offensive game. No. And Steph was just like, no problem. I got this. 22 points in the third quarter, ended up with 4 more threes in that fourth quarter to finish it off for them. Incredible stuff, which kind of downplayed a good Paolo game from the Magic too.
Yeah, Paolo put up 41, and we're just not even going to talk about it. I mean, it was a really good game from him, but Steph is more important. But I think the other thing is, these are two teams that are kind of trending in different directions, and the Magic, like we gave them a lot of credit because they did. They were treading water without all their guys. And like we talked about the other day, their offense is struggling without Jalen Suggs. We saw some of that.
For sure.
But for the Warriors, they're now 7-1 since they got Jimmy Butler. This is a completely different team. They're a half game back as we record this going into Friday of the Clippers for the 6th seed. I think there's a great chance that by Monday or by Tuesday, this is a team that is the 6th seed, and we've been kind of penciling them into the play-in this entire time. So I think that's a pretty big deal. But the biggest deal to come from this game that wasn't Steph Curry, Quintin Post. He came off the bench, put up 18 points, hit a couple of threes. Yeah. He's big, but, and we're going to talk about the shots he made. But, man, I think his defense has come a really long way in such a short amount of time. And he might be a guy, I mean, he's going to be in their rotation in the playoffs. He may be one of the more important guys coming off the bench for them.
Yeah, he's shooting 44% on threes this season on over 4 attempts a game. So that's like near the top of the list, if not the top of the list for rookies right now in Quintin Post. And so his size, his ability to shoot, but also, like you said, just be a big body out there for certain lineups has been awesome. And I was looking up some lineup data. The Warriors have 2 looks that they go for now with Jimmy Butler. They have like the Jimmy Butler led lineup which includes Quintin Post. And that's because you want spacing around him. Jimmy's going to barrel to the basket, et cetera, et cetera. And then they have the Steph Curry lineup, which is, kind of catered towards what Steph can do as an off ball shooter. I think they found an identity there with staggering Jimmy and Steph. And to your point about Post, like he just adds a 3-point shooting element from a big that they do not have. Like they can use him as a guy off ball.
Spates.
Yeah. It's crazy to hear Maurice Spates in 2025.
And
that's unreal.
I just need to see, what I need to see over the next few weeks, I need to see a handful of Steph Curry, Quintin Post, pick and pop. I just want to see what it looks like. Like, give me that a few times a game, because if that's something that he can develop confidence in, and obviously he can run it with Jimmy Butler. I mean, Jimmy Butler is such an effective driver that I think that, with Post popping out to the 3-point line, you're just going to create lanes for Jimmy Butler. So I just want to see him involved in so much, especially in those second units when he's out there and it's Jimmy.
Kind of reminds me of like what they wanted Dario Saric to be.
Of course.
A little bit.
Yes. This is something that I think they've been searching for a while. So yeah, that's a guy to watch, but man, Steph, the GOAT. Let's talk Lakers and Wolves. The Wolves lost. Okay. That's the long story short. The Lakers pick up the win. But it was kind of an odd victory, I would say, for the Lakers. They got out to this huge lead early. They looked great, just world beaters. The defense, which we've been kind of trying to highlight here the last few games for them, it looked great.
It was incredible. Yeah.
And then Anthony Edwards gets ejected over what I thought was a pretty soft technical. I don't know what he said, but I just don't. I don't really understand what benefit there is to toss one of the brightest stars of the game out for something that isn't egregious. So he gets ejected, and then once again the Wolves go on a run without Anthony Edwards, and I start texting you, S, and I'm saying, okay, so Terrence Shannon and Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that's a 3-man core that kind of brings some energy for them. So
they're a lot of fun.
Before we get to the Lakers, let's talk about the Wolves, and in particular that little unit that little unit out. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Terrence Shannon is like we've kind of described him as like bull in a china shop, right? Yeah. But he plays like the Tasmanian devil, just constantly going. And I think that's one of the coolest parts about him. He's an older rookie, so his size and his body is already sort of developed. Like he's ready to be
6'6", 215.
Yeah. Absolutely, which helps in these situations because he can just destroy people at the basket. I think one of the coolest things about him is just like his relentlessness, and that pairs well when you have a team that's trying to come back from deficits, because he's not going to give up. He's not going to be a guy who's just going to give up on a possession. And so Nickeil Alexander-Walker, good two-way player. McDaniel's another great defender. They just have guys who can lock in when it's that group, and it causes these weird, funky lineups that force comebacks. You add Naz Reid to this situation, and he's shooting and making shots, et cetera, et cetera. Clark, also the rookie who just got his contract converted, that's another guy who's been locking up. So I really like this Wolves team. Like, they're younger guys. They play these guys more, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Get these guys some reps.
Let's talk about the Lakers and their offensive symmetry and balance. Okay. In this game, they attempted 41 2-pointers, 41 3-pointers, and 46 free throws. S.
Look, Wolves fans are not going to be happy of you saying that right now, because I think that's something. You know, it's funny. They said the same thing. Chris Finch complained about the Thunder getting calls. Well, man, he's going to complain after this one. I wonder.
I mean, listen, it's the Lakers tax that you pay when you go and play them in LA. And I know that's going to be the big thing. But I wonder if Chris Finch complaining about the officiating, which we've been seeing a lot of. And by the way, wrongly, because a lot of fans have already dug this up, that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's free throw rate on drives is actually lower than Anthony Edwards. Of course, Chris Finch was complaining about all the foul calls for Shai. But this was an egregious amount of free throws, and it did feel a little ticky-tack. I don't know.
It was.
Don't want to get stuck on the officiating, but it was a ton.
I was going to say, like, it's so hard to parse through officiating usually, where I sort of disregard it at this point. And I know it sucks to do that, but ultimately it's kind of like the game is the game and you got to play it, right? So if the officiating happens that way, you kind of have to dictate the way you're going to play to what the calls are being made on that and on any given night. That said, like, the Lakers tend to be a pretty good team at drawing free throws anyways. Like, Austin Reeves attacks the basket well.
Luka Doncic was extra aggressive to start the game. He had like 8 or 9 drives in the first half. So they were actually getting the Wolves to kind of commit a lot of fouls, but there were a lot of free throws, especially down the stretch. But that's neither here nor there because we want to talk about the game. Luka kind of had a rough game. He did not shoot the ball well. I think he missed 10 straight shots, and a lot of those were just right at the basket. I'm not sure if this is, again, the calf issue is going to be a night in, night out thing until he's 100% healthy. So we're going to see stuff like this. But LeBron continues this run that he's on. And incredible, man. I said he's top 10. He's playing like a top 5 player right now. Two-way player, 33 points, 17 rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, a block. And when you're watching the ground that he covers defensively during this stretch, it is undeniable to me that this guy he's been top 5 for this little month.
LeBron is playing the exact same role that Draymond Green does for the Golden State Warriors on defense, quarterbacking it all. The anchor, safety, that kind of defender for them, weak side rim protector, a guy who's basically on the backside of everything they do on their switch everything defense and saying where to go and what's coming from where. That is the beautiful defensive acumen of a guy like LeBron. He's incredible at figuring out what offenses are going to throw out at you and figuring out how to stop it. And I don't think we've seen it to this level for a pretty long time. Because he's always had Anthony Davis behind him in a Lakers uniform to be able to kind of clean those things up. Now it's him doing that stuff, which is awesome to see. The other thing I wanted to mention about LeBron, it's there were a couple times today where I watched him and I'm like, I can't believe this man is 40 years old. I really can't believe he is a 40-year-old man doing this. I've been watching him since I was 8 years old. And I am nearly 30.
I just got to tell you, let's just relax. Okay.
It's just crazy.
40's not that old, but also
I'm just saying it's
juxtapose
nuts.
This, right? Think about this. Okay. So we just watched Steph, 56 points at his age. LeBron, and I think Steph, the shooting is going to stick around. He's probably not going to be as dynamic, as he continues, but LeBron, 40, he looks like he's got at least another 3 years left in him.
Now he does. Yeah.
KD, who is going to likely be on a new team because the Suns are cooked. Yeah. He still is playing at an elite level.
Yeah. Still does this thing.
This is, I think we're entering into a unique era where the limits just don't exist yet. We haven't found them for these elite guys. But what LeBron's doing is, to me, unparalleled. I see people comparing Tom Brady. I think the demands of a pocket passing quarterback, especially with the skill and all of the mental acuity that Tom Brady had. Yeah. I think you can scheme your way into that guy being maybe looking better than he is. But what LeBron is doing night in, night out, he is absolutely crushing souls of guys that are half his age.
He's playing, honestly, if LeBron was playing like this all year, he would be in the MVP conversation, which is ridiculous to say for a man who, again, makes 40 years old. I wanted to say, to your point about Steph, KD, and LeBron, obviously moving away from the fact that KD and the Suns are not going to be making the playoffs. We're quick to be like, oh, this new era. But you're going to get LeBron and Steph in the postseason playing competitive basketball, maybe vying for a championship. Yeah, maybe.
It's absurd.
We don't know. Yeah,
it's absurd.
It's crazy.
These guys are going to be the face of the league until somebody else takes it from them.
Yep.
We should mention before we go to break, Zion Williamson recorded his first career triple-double against the Suns. Again, the Suns are cooked. The post-game stuff was really bad for them.
Yeah, it's over.
But how is this Zion's first career triple-double? I mean, it's just... doesn't have a lot of games.
He's gotten a lot better. Well, yes, not a lot of games under his belt, but also he's gotten a lot better at learning how to create advantages outside of kind of the double teams that he sees. He's the most double team player in the entire NBA. That stat was going around a little bit earlier. So just his vision has improved since seeing so many doubles, especially in the post, draw, kick. Yeah.
I call
corner,
bull on
easy
that,
stuff.
Because Steph Curry exists and they double him every single time he's on the court.
Off ball, maybe.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. All right, guys, stick around after the break. We have one of the best conversations that we've had on the pod since we launched it with Law Murray, just talking about how different each team actually plays. We got a big game tonight. We got Luka and the Lakers going up against the Clippers for the first time. So we got to get our guy Law Murray in here. Law, are you excited for this? I mean, it's Luka versus the Clippers. That feels a little bit bigger than just the Lakers.
I guess I've seen Luka and the Clippers plenty of times, and I've seen the Lakers and the Clippers plenty of times. I'm just happy to be allowed in the building, dude. It's like I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna let the game speak for itself. So if it's an incredibly boring game, then I'm gonna enjoy my Friday night one way or the other. So that's where I'm at.
I have so many Luka versus the Clippers memories now that you bring that up. The bubble, the playoff series when him and Kawhi went back and forth, which was an incredible playoff series, if anybody remembers that. How do you feel this, I guess, iteration of it will go with Luka now on the Lakers?
It's a perfect match of hate. Like that's where it is. Like Luka hates these dudes. Like he always has. And I mean, his first two playoff experiences in the bubble in 2020 and then in 2021, he put up historic numbers. There are some people who, you know, if you don't watch games or anything like that, you just watch highlights. You thought that Luka won one of those in 2020 and 2021, one of those series. Like people, that's how, like, I used to walk through the halls of the American Airlines Center that they have there in Dallas, right? And they still, you know, obviously, I haven't been there since the trade, but they had that image in 2020 of Luka's step back over Reggie Jackson. You know what I mean?
I believe they just blacked out the image of Luka and put the Mavs logo.
It's probably a hologram now, you know. But that's what it was. It's actually it's probably a hologram of Anthony Davis from his one game on their team. All that aside, this is a part of a 7-game road trip for the Clippers. They are coming home after playing 4 games in the Midwest. I'm laughing because it's actually funny. The Clippers build a new arena and they still get the short end of the stick with the scheduling. They get to come home, sleep in their own beds, and then play in someone else's arena for 2 games before heading out for yet another road game. So that dynamic I'm excited about. I've been to Staples because I refuse to call it by its sham name now. A few times.
I have to change that soon anyway. Don't worry. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what. Listen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, my editors for the most part are cool, and they don't insert the name in my stories, right? If you've ever since they changed the name, I think it was December of 2023. I don't even remember the year because I don't
Something
care.
Like that.
Sure.
Like I refuse to write crypto.com on social media. I would just say redacted, right? Because I just felt like who is going to this website? Like I don't even like Staples that much,
right?
But like it was iconic because of, you know, the arena.
We just call it Top Shot Arena. We'll call it Top Shot Arena, and everybody will get the joke.
We're just in a sad place with arena names, period. Okay,
I agree with you guys that like it's always Staples and the new name Arena is silly as hell, but the nickname for it is kind of hard. The Crypt. Have you guys heard that? No?
Oh yeah, I've heard it.
Sure. I don't even know if they do monster trucks in there. So like, is Gravedigger ever gonna? You know that. Right. That's what I need. All right. Law. Sure. I want to talk to you about something else. Not just the Clippers, because the thing is, Law, you're one of my favorite people to talk basketball with. Like you watch everybody, and if you guys follow Law on social media, you'll see that he is watching every single game that he's not covering directly. I mean, the guy is clipping stuff, and you know you're doing power rankings, but I loved the piece that you wrote about what separates NBA teams' offensive identities, because like there's been a huge topic of conversation. I actually brought it up on the show yesterday about people being bored watching the Celtics. There's been all this hand wringing over All-Star Weekend, enough that Adam Silver had to address whether they need to make changes to the actual game itself. Are people bored? Are there too many threes? And I happen to disagree with the negative discourse about the game, but I can certainly understand with the increase in 3-point proliferation where people feel like everyone is just same. But the truth is, when you dig into the tape, like I do, and like you do, and like S does, and like Zena does, I mean, we know that there is a difference from night to night, game to game, team to team. The schemes change. So you wrote, and what I want to say is an exhaustive piece with a ton of research. I want to give you a ton of credit for that because I know what it takes to go in and see this stuff. Where essentially, if you guys haven't read it, I will link it in the show description so that you can get there, because I do think it's worth taking a look at, and even at a glance. So just for instance, here is just how plays start for each team. who touches the ball the most, what their preferred go-to play style is. So like the Boston Celtics, of course, Jason Tatum is the touch leader. His preferred non-pick and roll play style, isolation. Does he take more threes? Does he shoot in the mid range? Does he get to the paint? And here you say he prefers threes. And this is for every single team. And then you go in and you break down what's their pick and roll possession rank. Where do they rank in drives? Where do they rank in passes? So number one, I want to just give you a lot of credit because I understand the work involved. But number two, I want to thank you for providing a lot of context to back up what the real ball knowers know every night when we're watching. And it's just that the game is so complicated that when you're trying to dumb it down, it can be hard. Mm-hmm. That's it. Well, thank you. Now, how did you get here? What surprised you when you were looking at all this stuff?
Well, the haters do a good job of giving me stuff to write about. So shout out to people hating on national platforms and whatnot. I always tell this story. A couple years ago, I saw somebody criticize Paul George for an Instagram comment that he left on his great friend Karl Anthony Towns' page, related to the vaccine. And I was like, you know what? I should write a story about Paul George and Karl Anthony Towns' friendship. And that wound up being one of my best stories the following season. So it's the same thing here. It's like a lot of people get off on talking about what they don't like about the game that we're all here to enjoy. Yep. And so with me, I'm not the best general manager type writer. I've learned to be a pretty good coach writer, which I'm not Dave. Dave Davis has literally coached, the country of Georgia. I'm not at that.
Pretty good, Law. You're pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say, we could probably
you're pretty good, Law.
Get an assistant coach situation.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm available from August 1st to August 31st. That's about
it. What? Maybe we go coach in the Drew League, Law. But continue. I really, the story behind it, I think, is important.
Yeah. So I've always kind of wanted to evolve my way of understanding the game, right? But to do so in a way that's digestible, that I can communicate effectively. All the basic stats out there, you need to, complement that with watching the game. And you can watch a game, but you want to contextualize it. You want to, It's like when you're taking the SATs, you know what I'm saying? Everybody in the country takes the SATs or whatever that random test is in the South that they take that I was never a part of. I think the ACT. Exactly. I don't know anything about that, but it's all standardized. Everybody gets grouped in the same thing and you can evaluate from there. You know what I'm saying? Those tests say a lot. They don't say everything. You need to interview me. You need to see what kind of student I am in high school. Talk to my guidance counselor if I have one. Right. Shout out to the schools that have guidance counselors still. So it's the same thing with basketball. It's like we have all these numbers, all this information, but which are the ones that you can digest and say, okay, I can see this happening on the floor. Right. And so I wanted to put all that in one place. And then I wanted to say, look, the game is simple. Put the damn ball in the basket more than the other team does. But from there, it's like, how are these teams doing it? And that's what the fun part is of watching basketball. That's why we watch thousands of games every season, because even though we have an idea of how the thing might end, we want to see how, right? We can look at a game between the Hornets and the Thunder and say the Thunder are probably going to win, but you want to see how the game turns out. I just saw the Hornets beat the damn Lakers just a week ago. How the heck did that happen? And so that's what this story was about. The story was about saying, hey, look, there are things that teams do every game. Of course there are. It's one ball in 4 quarters. 5 guys are playing on each team. But how those teams actually play and the consistency of them, we can say that you're not going to get a team that plays the same way all the time. Even the teams that copycat, because it's a copycat league, how they copycat is going to be
look a little different.
With
it's inherent in the sport. It's inherent in the sport, Law. There's only so many ways to put the ball in the basket.
100%.
You don't stop between plays. So play calling is on the fly, literally.
That's right.
So you have bread and butter, literally bread and butter plays. That's what we call them. They're usually in my back pocket. And you go to those when you need a bucket. And so often things do look the same, but it's more rhyming than it is repetition.
And you know what it is? It's
different spaces and whatnot.
I think what people get caught up in is the results versus the actual process of it.
Right.
People think, all right, it resulted in a 3-point shot. It resulted in a bucket at the basket. But how did you get to that bucket? Was a handoff? Was it a pick and roll? Did you cut your way to that basket? And I think, Law, in your piece, you kind of broke down that exact way. Like the Cavs, great pick and roll team, obviously with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. They are elite. They're one of the best offenses in the league. Right behind them is the Memphis Grizzlies, and they don't run any pick and roll. So there's a variety in the way that you can get to things. Well, I wanted to ask you about this because this is something I'm curious about your thoughts on. Is it an education thing for NBA fans to get them to the point to maybe understand that it's not the result or the outcome of a certain possession, but the way at which teams are going through this? And obviously your piece is part of that, but how do we do that?
Well, I will say this. A lot of the data that made up this piece, especially in the tables, I didn't want to focus on who's good. Right. I didn't want to focus on just, obviously you're going to lead. The NBA is led by the great players and the great teams, the champions of the past. Yep. Those are the teams that get remembered, and the teams that when you're putting teams together, you're saying, is there a blueprint? Is there something to say that there's a precedent for success as to why you're doing the way you're doing these things? Like pretty much everything that I wanted to show as far as data was not a ranking of they're great at this, they're terrible at this. It's a matter of just tendencies,
Right.
A fast-paced team can be really good offensively, or a fast-paced team can be the Bulls or the Wizards. All right. A slow-paced team, we think of a slow-paced team and we think that's a negative connotation. But honestly, there are a lot of teams that say we're going to slow it down and we're going to beat you.
Well, matchup hunting, right? I mean, Boston is a prime example of this, right? Like they slow it down because they want to attack a particular matchup. And they're one of the few teams that have stuck to this. Like, no matter what, we are going to pick on a guy every single possession. I actually think part of this too, Law, with like just the discourse, it is a bit of a perception thing. And I think some of it is brought on by highlight culture. I mean, you talked about it. There's 1,230 regular season NBA games. It's a lot. And I think that you see so many highlights, and S, to your point, the play conclusion.
Yeah,
it's a great pass if the shot goes in, but you never see that clip if the shot doesn't go in. And also lost in that context is like when you see this beautiful basketball and it's like 5 or 6 passes. Well, part of that is the defense has these guys having to move the ball and make it work. And that also gets lost in the discourse. But I think that the highlight issue, and then when you sit down to watch a full game, you're like, oh, hang on a second. These guys are hitting 35% of the shots they take because so many of them are threes now. And I do think that that's a disconnect. I wonder if red zone watching may cause this down the line for football, where when you sit down to watch a full football game, you're like, wow, this is incredibly slow. I'm just kind of guessing there, but like, do you think I'm onto something here, Law, where it's just, we see so many highlights, the play finish, the ball goes through the net. And then when you actually turn on a game, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. If you are watching, cause I do this a lot too. Like if I'm watching one game, I'm seeing things through one game. I'm literally in arenas watching the process of things that worked in the first quarter not work all of a sudden in the third quarter. Guys that are getting hot early or struggling early, it flips. Like that's why you see 4 quarters. That is the context of a game. The games are what matter in the standings. But we'll remember different things. Like we'll remember if LeBron James dunks on somebody that he's, old enough to be their father. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how we are. Like you brought up football. I love red zone. I used to work in NFL. Andrew Siciliano and Scott Hansen are great friends of mine that I've literally handed notes to during live telecasts. I know how that stuff goes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so like if you watching red zone if you're on the West Coast, 10 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, you're seeing a different experience of football. It's the same thing if you're at the airport and you can't watch a game, but you can see the conversation on social media develop. It's like, you're getting bits and pieces of things. You're getting things taken out. You're not seeing teams clip entire highlights unless it's the Pacers. The Pacers love doing that stuff. You're not seeing entire possessions and stuff like that. You're not seeing what actually wound up creating advantages all the time. So that's what we don't talk about those things unless we have pull out stories that The Athletic provides us space to do.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why I love working at The Athletic, because we're the only place that's doing that right now. Law Murray, go and check him out. Again, I try to remind everybody, if you read The Athletic on the app or on the website, you can follow the writers that you love. I love Law Murray. I read all of his stuff. Follow him. You get a notification every single time he posts a new story, which I believe there's one today on Luka versus the Clippers. So good timing on that. Thank you, Law Murray, for hanging out and talking to ball. Thank you, Es Baraheni, as always. I'm Dave DuFour. This has been the NBA Daily. Thank you guys for listening.